Times Influence Initiative.
As India rushes towards actualizing its $1 trillion digital dream, the Digital India Summit was the platform where the agenda of our technology-enabled future took shape. At the event, industry leaders and experts gathered to dissect 5G and digital payments, the two sectors driving the core of India's digital innovation. Leading the conversation on the challenges ahead on the road to deploying nationwide 5G were the Director General of Cellular Operators Association of India, Rajan Matthews, Senior Vice President Qualcomm India, Parag Kar, and Senior VP and Head of Network Business Samsung India, Srinivasan Sundararajan.
Is India 5G ready? That's of course a million-dollar question that we are discussing here. We have seen the kind of strides that 4G has made, but the government making the right noises about 5G is something that we will be discussing today. And what are the challenges, the regulatory hurdles that we are likely to face as we move on with 5G? Let me first take it across to you, Rajan Matthews. We have seen how telecom companies and telecom sector, so to say, despite being a sunrise sector, is now dealing with overstretched balance sheets, high debt pile, declining ARPUs, and an abysmal return on capital. With this kind of scenario, is meeting the 2020 deadline a tall order?
It is a tall order, but I think a few moving pieces that need to be looked at. One is from an industrial policy perspective, the government has taken the right call. They have put together a high-level 5G committee. When you ask the question, is the industry ready? I think we are a little ways from being ready. First of all, as you rightly point out, there's a tremendous amount of investment that's going to be required to, one, get our 4G networks in shape. You know, there's, capacity issues, there's quality issues. So that's an investment required. And when you look at NDTP 2018, you're looking at $100 billion investment requirement. Now, that's all going to come from the private sector. So unless the issue of the financial stress of the industry is dealt with, the tall order remains a tall order.
Parag, let me come to you. Before this panel, we were discussing about the kind of role the regulator has to play. Many say that the regulator is presiding on the death of the telecom sector. And now when we're looking at talking about 5G, what is it that the regulator needs to do? I mean, the kind of policies that they have come up with, they're not enough, and they're also not taking into account the general stress that we're seeing.
We need to ensure that we nurture the ecosystem, right? In order for anybody to deploy 5G, we have to nurture the ecosystem. But before we nurture the ecosystem, we actually have to nurture the triggers which will nurture the ecosystem,
Absolutely.
right? So what are those triggers, right? We need to find the right 5G spectrum in right quantum, the right kind of bands, open up those bands, and then at an optimal price, right? So those are like very, very important, because if the right spectrum bands are not opened up, right, which is aligned with the international bands which other countries are using, the ecosystem is not going to grow.
Right.
So we have to find those spectrum bands, right? The other factor is even the 3.5 gigahertz spectrum band, the price which TRAI has set is pretty high, right? It's around 500 crores per megahertz, which is almost 5 to 6 times, right? The price which is in the international market. So there are certain improvements which are possible, and I will talk about the improvement as we move along.
So, you know, you've hit the nail on its head. Pricing is one of the issues. The optic fiberization is one of the issues. The spectrum availability is one of the issues. And we will be discussing all of that one by one as we move on in the discussion. But Mr. Sundararajan, if I should come to you, we have seen how in the US, in South Korea, strides have been made. Optic fiberization is almost 80%, but in India we're only at about 25%. How important will be fixing all these issues before we look at 2020?
There are many societal or policy ecosystem, many things have to be done before you are getting to any kind of a mass deployment of 5G. That doesn't mean you will not have a deployment of 5G. In my mind, I do not see near-term 5G as ever a 4G replacement. There's a lot of investments have happened, a lot of investments are happening. So 4G has to stay for a while for the operators and the service providers to get a return on it. But 5G will end up operating along with it for some specific use cases, and the specific use cases are getting defined globally, but there will be many more unique to India that will get developed as we move forward.
Well, let me come to you, Mr. Matthews. Now the big question is, as far as telecom operators are concerned, why will they put their money in 5G when the pricing is so high, when we were moving ahead with 4G, when they've already invested so much money with the current technology?
So, good question, because ultimately the telecom operator is driven by the dynamics of customer demand. All right, so invariably the operators have to prepare themselves, and the rest of the world is getting ready for 5G, and the consumers of those countries are talking about enjoying various services at extremely fast speeds, and that allows various applications to ride on the network, and we should not deprive the Indian citizens of those opportunities.
Mr. Sundarajan, let me come to you. In terms of technological challenges, in terms of technical challenges, what is it that needs to be done?
Actually, 5G is not a single technology. It's a mixture of many technology. I always call it an elephant. You look at it from different direction, it looks different, right? So first we need to have a priority of what is important from a country perspective. There is clearly business value use cases. There is clearly societal value use cases. So that kind of clarity will then require a collaboration of people to work together. Whether it's a government, we already talked about that, the educational institution, the OEMs, as well as what I call a vertical industry. I think 5G is first time we are going to really see the use cases, or what I call a service provider is going to come from the vertical industry, while the infrastructure provider may still be remaining on the telecom industry. There is a complete skill set development that need to get done. This is no longer a skill set development of people in the telecom industry. This will be a skill set development of people in the various associated verticals who will be doing the 5G. So that's the reason why many people are not sure how quickly this will roll out, because a whole variety of things in addition to the basic technology of backhauls and fiber and all this kind of stuff that need to get done.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fiberization is also going to be very important, Matthews. How to get the ecosystem ready? I mean, you know, we have spoken about what TRAI needs to do. We have spoken about what the government needs to do, how telecom companies are bleeding. But from a larger technological and infrastructure ecosystem that has to, come up to speed, where do you think we are, and what is it do you think that we need to do to meet the 2020 goals?
So first of all, I don't think we are too far behind the rest of the world. I think, the government has, as I said, put in place this high-level 5G. So I think we keep on coming back. We're saying is that the country is ready. The government has made it ready. We have a high-level 5G forum. We've been talking about regulatory issues. All of those are in place. Now, the question is, how does this thing evolve? We can't go ahead of our headlights, as we say. All right? So right now, we are saying, from an operator perspective, we are the ones who have to make the investment. What are the use cases that allow us to make a business case in terms of this? Now, the government has sort of highlighted 5, right? We've talked about smart cities, agriculture, education, health, waste management and all of this. So those will hopefully be the areas where we would begin to start seeing emerging things.
What about manufacturers? And this is my last question, Mr. Kar. Are manufacturers ready to make that transition?
When manufacturer makes products, they make product for a particular market. First, there has to be a market, right? And the market can only happen if somebody is putting money on the table and drawing out the network, right? So the network has to come first.
So the ball is in the court of the operators then.
So ultimately, in order for us to see 5G on the table, the operator should see the value. And the 5G as a technology is bringing that value on the table because it is quite distinct from the earlier wireless technology.
All right, on that note, let me thank all my panelists for joining in today. Gentlemen, many thanks.
Stay tuned for a very special panel of industry experts deliberating on the path ahead for the digital payments industry. Digital payment companies have revolutionized how Indians transact online. To deliberate on the challenges and opportunities of this evolving ecosystem, the Digital India Summit played host to 4 key industry leaders. Director of PayPal India, Nath Parmeshwaran. Joint Managing Director of Oxygen Services India, Sunil Kulkarni. Associate Director India, PCI Security Standard Council, Nitin Bhatnagar. And Head of Finance and Strategic Partnerships at MobiKwik, Preeti Pandey.
PayPal has now been in India for almost 10 years, a formidable force when it comes to B2C, B2B. It's been a good ride. How important is the Indian market?
Nayantara, the facts speak for itself. Okay, we don't see India just as a market. Okay, this is the center of operations for our strategic success. So, what we have here is the largest workforce outside of the US from an engineering perspective. In the B2C space, when you talk about small SMEs wanting to export made in India goods and services, we play a very big role in helping them sell and export India stuff abroad and receive payments through that. Okay, that's a huge focus, aligns very well with what the Make in India and Digital India story is. And as a part of our commitment to the India market, we set up a full-fledged subsidiary a year back. We also launched our domestic operations.
Preeti, if I could come to you now. This is, of course, very important, and it became even more important after demonetization, after 8th of November 2016. But cash is back. The RBI data also shows that cash is back. But having said that, digital transactions are still rising. Maybe the pace of growth has come down. Simultaneously, while during demonetization, we heard about, one of your competitors, Paytm, a lot and has become very formidable. Is this also becoming a market, a space which is crowded by too many?
I don't think so. I think it's having a fair bit of competition is any day required for development in any ecosystem. I think it does more good than bad, and that's the stage where we are at right now, wherein whoever is existing in the payment ecosystem is actually bringing something good to the ecosystem, and together we are developing the payment ecosystem.
Nitin Bhatnagar, let me come to you. How is it exactly done when you talk about standards in payment? Is there one standard? Are there 5 standards? Are there 20 standards? How does it work?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question that you have asked. I think the PCI standards body, which is the Payment Card Industry Security Standard Council, is the only standards body which works globally to protect the payment data, right? And today, as we talk, we are looking at 14 standards today to protect the payment data that we have today, and it covers from the wide range of securing the payment applications, securing your infrastructure where you are actually storing, processing, and/or transmitting cardholder data. Trust in the payments is very, very important, first thing. And in order to gain that trust, you need to create education and awareness for the consumers. And that's the key element that everyone, when we are going to collaborate and work together, we need to focus on that. That should be the first and foremost element that we should be focusing in order to get and build that trust in the payments, in the digital payments.
Do you have a favorite standard at Oxygen?
I think while PCI is a standard for cards, there are now multiple standards like UPI, Aadhaar. They are not part of PCI standards. So I think India is a very unique place where you have at one merchant location multiple form factors. I mean, if you look at total number of credit cards and debit cards in the country, you have about 35 to 40 million credit cards and 900 million debit cards. But what you have is 1.2 billion Aadhaar registrations. And therefore, you need a payment system which can encompass not only cards, but also cardless payments, which in PCI is contactless, as well as QR code. And in other than PCI, it is UPI and Aadhaar Pay.
Preeti, what did you think when the eKYC norms came, and more importantly, when it's been extended for 6 months, you all now have another 6 months. What was your reaction when it came out? Was it too knee-jerk, and is 6 months enough time now for you, or do you need more?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think it was knee-jerk. I mean, for last few quarters, we have been setting up our businesses and processes in line with regulatory compliance of doing KYC the way RBI wanted us to do, right? So when it came that you cannot now use KYC, Aadhaar for eKYC, it was a knee-jerk reaction to us, right? I mean, I'll agree to that. And last few quarters, we've also been sort of not getting the clarity on what's going to be the way forward for using Aadhaar for doing KYC for mobile wallets, right? See, mobile wallets have been the entry point into digital payment segment, right? These are small value transactions. People take money from their bank accounts and keep it in mobile wallet because, of course, it's easy to be onboarded on a mobile wallet ecosystem. It's convenient to use. And there is a reason for you to be sticking around because of the incentive structure and that mobile wallets offer, right? Now with regulators' requirement of complying to regulations which are similar or exactly same as that of banks, I think is something that needs to be really discussed and thought about.
See, currently if you see, bulk of the payments are happening digital to digital. It's not digitization. You take a credit card and load a wallet. You take a debit card and transfer to a bank account and 700 to 700 rupees cashbacks and all that. It's all digital to digital. That's not digitization. What today, she talked about the cash is back. 2.5 lakh crore is withdrawn from bank on ATM every month prior to digitization, prior to demon. Today it is 2.7 lakh crore. So total cash in retail payments is $1.3 trillion or 10 lakh crore. Less than 10% is actually digital. So we are talking about over 9 lakh crore payment happening through cash. Why? Because we don't have cash to digital conversion. Now cash to digital conversion is a dirty business in terms of putting your hands dirty. Easy to transfer money from a debit card to a wallet or a credit card to a wallet or a debit card to a bank account or a credit card to a bank account, but from cash to digital is where the bulk of the 3 million POS currently are not growing beyond 3 million POS. The country needs today between 15 to 20 million POS terminals where cash to digital can happen.
But Mr. Parameshwaran, you have a clear differentiator at PayPal, which is that you want to also target MSMEs and SMEs, get them on your channel, and also help them export. Is that the biggest differentiator for PayPal today?
Nandara, I would say, there are two stakeholders that we keep at the center. One is the consumer, okay, and other
supposed
is
to
the,
be king.
and the second is the SME or the MSME as we call them in India. So one solution to help the SME sell locally and internationally and receive payments. From a consumer side, our focus is very clear. Remove friction from the payment experience, okay, back it up with safety. What is happening in India, if you would agree with me, is a large number of users come into the system, okay, for a few bad experiences that they have, okay, or if there is no enough incentive for them to stick to the network, they would prefer to go back to cash. How do you make them stay? It is only when you have security and when you give him confidence that if things go wrong, there is somebody who can, have your back. So that would be our clear focus in terms of safety and security for the users, as well as, help the MSME grow their business.
The other thing which we need to, I would like to talk about is the future. We all know what has happened in the last couple of years. We've all been here. Most of us have downloaded our first app to do all of this in the last 4 to 5 years, etc. Having said that, there are other big giants who want to enter this space. For example, look at WhatsApp payment. How long can the government stop it and say that no, jab tak you don't do this and you don't listen to me, I mean, only so much arm twisting can happen, and after maybe election, it could become a reality, right? What is that going to mean for Oxygen and MobiKwik? You have other, global giants who want to come in. Right now, maybe data localization, the norms on that is also stopping them. How are you bracing up for that?
Talking about the players that are coming here or intend to come here in India, yes, they have their own incentives to be here in the market because it's a huge market, right? I mean, that's where it all starts. What's the size of the market? And it's huge. And nobody cannot be present in India in digital payment, right? So that's going to continue, I guess. Where we are seeing as an opportunity is, of course, there's never been a month wherein we have not seen a growth in our digital payment business, right? So every month we do see growth.
We've run out of time. I know it was very interesting. I'd like to thank all my panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Times Influence Initiative.